These are the history facts that sound wrong until the records, the art, or the aftermath make them real. From an election result that should not have happened to a wartime drawing that preserved a city, each story shows history taking an unexpected turn. A dead man still won a seat in the South Dakota House of Representatives, and the ballot carried his name anyway. The name was already printed before the vote, so the ballot did not change when the candidate died. Voters still marked the paper and cast it in the box. That meant the election happened after the death, but the vote still counted in the official tally. The result followed the paper, not the person. When the count was finished, the dead candidate was still recorded as the winner. The office could not ignore the result just because the name had outlived the man. So a paper ballot became the final answer, even after the candidate was gone. The vote sat in the House record, beside a name no one could send to the chamber. One Titanic survivor appears in the ship's records under a different name, Phong Lang. That single line raises a strange question before the explanation arrives. Titanic paperwork was meant to sort passengers and survivors after the disaster, but records could carry the wrong identity when names were copied, translated, or simplified. In this case, the ship's records show Phong Lang as the survivor's name. The paperwork preserves the entry, even though it does not fully explain the person behind it. The result is a record that outlives the moment and still leaves a gap in the story. A survivor can be present on the page and absent in the details. So the final trace is not a full biography, but a name written into Titanic paperwork. A line of ink remains where a survivor should have been clear. Mikhailo Staritsky paid for theater work with money from a rusk factory. A bread crisp factory and a stage belonged in the same story. The factory made rusks, a simple dried food sold for everyday use. Staritsky was a writer, and he also kept his own theater moving. The key move was simple. The proceeds from sales were redirected into stage work. Money from bread crisp sales became costumes, rehearsals, and performance costs. That turned a food business into cultural support. The theater gained practical backing instead of waiting for a patron's favor. One factory helped keep actors working, and one writer kept the doors open. In the same account, a rusk basket sits beside the theater curtain. 3 schoolboys made a pact that later touched a vizier's death. The odd part is how a classroom promise reached a palace road. The tale names them as Nizam al-Mulk, Hassan Sabah, and Omar Khayyam. They were classmates before any of them held rank, fame, or followers. The promise was simple: if one rose, the others would share the rise. Later, one became a ruler's vizier, one a poet-scholar, and one a revolutionary. Power changed the meaning of the pact. Nizam al-Mulk was later assassinated by Hassan's followers, turning old classmates into political enemies. Omar Khayyam is remembered differently in the story. He turns from power and toward calculation, while the pact ends in a court, a road, and a grave. Belisarius abandoned the siege of Ariminum to save a general who had ignored him. Ariminum was under pressure, and Belisarius had a siege to hold. Then word came that a general had refused orders and was now in danger. Instead of tightening the siege, Belisarius chose movement. He broke away from Ariminum and rode toward the stranded general. That meant the siege had to pause. A rescue ride replaced the pressure on the walls, and the army watched its commander leave the line. In the end, the choice was not about the wall alone. It was about a commander turning back for another commander, with Ariminum behind him and the road ahead. Aeschylus wrote a lost play called Semele, and it may have done something no other Greek tragedy did. Hera appeared on stage. Aeschylus was one of the great writers of ancient Greek tragedy. Semele is one of his lost plays, known now through its title and later references. The unusual part is simple: Hera is a goddess, but tragedy rarely put her directly on stage. Semele is the only known example of that happening. That makes the missing play stand out in theater history. Even without the full text, the title points to a rare dramatic choice by Aeschylus. So a lost script still leaves one clear image: Hera on an ancient stage. Semele survives as a name, a playwright, and that single impossible entrance. One account gives Tibet's first king webbed hands. That is a very strange way to begin a royal story. The setting is a first king origin account, the kind of text that explains where a ruler came from. It focuses on his body, not his throne. The account adds another detail: his eyelids were said to close upward. Together, the hands and eyelids make him feel less ordinary and more like a figure from story. That kind of description pushes the ruler beyond simple biography. The king becomes a character shaped by unusual features, not just a name in a list. So the first king arrives through an account that trades plain detail for striking traits. What remains is a ruler imagined through hands, eyelids, and the written page. Joan Russell drew Canterbury after the bombs fell, and her pages recorded damage more completely than most official files. Canterbury was hit during the Baedeker Blitz, when air raids struck historic British cities. Russell looked at streets, walls, and roofs, then drew what she saw on paper. Her study followed the damage across the city, building a comprehensive record. Each drawing fixed one building, one corner, one scar in charcoal. That makes her work unusually valuable today. It may be the most complete record of wartime bomb damage to any British city outside London. Canterbury did not survive on memory alone. Russell left charcoal streets, broken stone, and paper pages that still point back to the Blitz. If one of these details changed how you see the past, the full anthology will do it again. Subscribe for more overlooked history, and tell us which fact surprised you most.